The Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, had made an announcement this morning of a relief package worth 1.7 lakh crore rupees. There was one announcement in it for farmers. Basically, the transfer that would have happened a little later in the year is going to happen for the farmers slightly earlier. It's about 2,000 rupees into their bank accounts. But from reports that we're getting from across the country right now, the APMC, or the agriculture produce markets, are shutting. Farmers, and you know that yesterday was Gudi Padwa and Yugadi, which means that it was a harvest festival. There's a Rabi crop of wheat and vegetables and jeera that's either standing in the fields or has been harvested and needs to be sold. The markets are shut. It's not possible right now to get trucks or to get tractors to actually drive the produce into those markets. So farmers are actually having to dump their stock, and they might run the risk of losing an entire harvest. Now, given the fact that the largest number of Indians work in farms in some capacity or the other, the possibility or the thought of a lost harvest should terrify us. Now, again, I want to point this out to those people who turn around and say journalists like me only find fault with the government. It is not my job to find fault. It is my job to find cases to be highlighted so the right people in authority can take decisions to remedy the problem. It's to bring it to your notice and bring it to the notice of the authorities that these things are happening so they can fix that problem. And I personally consider this one voice for me, the most trusted voice on what's happening in our agriculture market. Mr. Yogendra Yadav is joining me right now, and I haven't spoken to him in a while, so it's such a pleasure, Mr. Yadav, to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much, first of all.
Delighted, Faye. Yeah.
I want to ask you, is there a risk right now of losing the entire Rabi crop?
I would not say the risk of losing the entire Rabi crop, because if that were to happen, we are in for economic catastrophe. But we are into a very serious problem. And I must be frank with you. I was disappointed after listening to the finance minister today. Let me begin by saying that I'm actually a supporter of the lockdown. I've gone out of my way to appeal to everyone, to protesters, to everyone, to say, please abide by the lockdown declaration. So this is not to derail lockdown. And in fact, I fear that if measures of the kind that I'm going to suggest are not taken, that could derail lockdown, because you cannot have such a, half of India in such economic livelihood crisis and then expect them to be disciplined and simply watch their earning of 6 months wither away. I think we should begin by acknowledging that a lockdown could not have come at a worst time. This is as you pointed out, this is the harvesting season in South India for various kinds of crops. In North India, this is the biggest, because Kharif is a slightly iffy crop in North India, in the dry regions. It's only Rabi, which is an assured crop. So you have wheat, you have mustard, you have chana, you have jaw. This is the biggest opportunity to earn. And this time, because the rains were good, farmers were really looking forward to a decent crop. Now, the problems are the following. Number one, as you pointed out, there are perishable commodities. There are sabji markets are closing down, fruits, and the farmers have nowhere to take. These are perishable commodities, have already started going bad, and they lose entirely. And remember, Faye, vegetables are more or less not covered by any insurance whatsoever. So it's perished, it's finished, they've lost. Second problem, as you correctly pointed out, is transportation to the mandis. Mandis are closed, APMCs are closed. Now, APMCs are not places where thousands of people are standing next to each other. APMCs are fairly well spread places. And if you wanted to enforce a 2-meter norm, APMC is a place where you easily can, because it's a very large compound. But sadly, stock markets are on, agriculture markets are off. For some reason, we don't think agriculture markets should be in the essential commodities right now. Third problem is transport. Even if the markets were to be on, you take anything out on the street and the police wala will beat the hell out of you, and there's no way you can even begin to reach there. Instructions are not clear. Farmers are not being allowed to take in. Fourth, the governments have suspended procurement operations. Now, for our viewers, you would know that, but many of our viewers would not, that unless the government steps in to purchase, especially wheat, rice, and some dals at the official price, there is no way farmers can get a decent price. And right now, procurements are being postponed. In central India, this is the procurement season. Telangana has done some decent job on it, but most places, nothing is being done. In Haryana and Punjab, procurement was about to begin, and it has already been postponed by 20 days. Now, farmer is sitting, I mean, he cannot ask the crops to be delayed. Crops are ready to be harvested. 20 days of delay is a very serious loss for them. So these are the multiple problems they are facing. We also should remember, Faye, that most of the farmers are also milk producers. They have milk. They cannot take the milk out. For one day, you can convert it into some khoa or something. What will you do after the second day? So these are multiple crises, and somehow it doesn't seem to figure on the government's radar. Today's declaration does nothing to it. All the declaration amounts to is saying that the amount which was due to farmers from April to August will be paid in April. What's the big deal? So really nothing has been done.
Also, the other problem that I do understand is the problem of seeds, because immediately after this particular harvest is done, farmers normally sow for their kharif crops. So, which means they have to be able to access seeds, buy seeds, get ready for the next sowing. Is that likely to be affected as well?
Seeds, fertilizers, everything is needed. Those shops should remain open. We don't have clear circulars even now on that. And one thing I forgot to mention was credit. Now, most farmers take crop loan. Crop loan is linked to the time of harvest. And if, for example, in much of Madhya Pradesh, central India, the deadline is 28th of March. That is to say, you must sell your crop and return the loan by 28th of March. And even if there's a delay of one day, the entire period interest goes up from something like 4% to 12%. Now, the least the government can do is to announce and say, all right, no such limit for this particular year. These are one-line notifications that the government can issue. No such notifications so far. So that's what is so disappointing, and I'm really hoping that maybe tomorrow some more notifications will come. This must figure on government's priority. We are speaking of half of the country's population. I could go on to list more problems. Agricultural laborers are working, and the government, going by current notifications, no one should go to the field to harvest their own crop because they would be violating the norms. We must find ways of being able to do that. Agriculture workers are stuck in many parts of the country, cannot go back to where they came from. And you must have heard those stories of people walking 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers. I mean, we live in the 21st century, a country that claims to be sending people to space. What are we doing?
Mr. Yadav, you did say that you believe that there are some measures the government can take for the problems that you've listed out of perishables, closed markets, lack of transport, and you did say, of course, procurement that has been halted. What solutions would you offer right now that the government could pick up and adopt to mitigate some of this?
Absolutely, because our point is not simply to list problems. For every problem, we should propose solution because we are in a national health emergency and we can't possibly blame the government for creating this situation. But we should expect the government to come up with solutions. So here are the solutions. Number one, Kisan credit card limit should be waived right away. Number two, just as the stock exchange market is open, similarly, agriculture market should also be open. Observe all the norms that you want to. That's all right. Number three, for procurement centers must be open. And if there is a problem in procuring in one particular place, procurement can take place at the village level. This has happened in the past. The government officials can go from village to procure it. This is very much possible. Number four, for agricultural laborer, the limits should be removed. Agricultural labor should be allowed to move. Number five, transportation, I'm reading from a list, and may I mention there is a wonderful website called Kisan Swaraj. These are my colleagues being run by colleagues like Kavita Kuruganti, who today addressed a wonderful letter. Maybe you could just give a link to your viewers, called kisanswaraj.in. This has some 10 demands to the Prime Minister on what needs to be done. So I was on transport. On transport, please include transportation of agriculture produce as part of allowed move, as part of essential commodities. These are some of the very quick suggestions. I could read the entire list of 10 things, but your viewers can go to kisanswaraj.in, which has a very good list and reasons and exact mechanism through which it can be done. Because our point is not only to oppose, we are here to give solutions.
So our viewers, there's a link at the bottom of this video, and you can take a look at that entire letter and visit the website kisanswaraj.in and read about that as well. There was a headline, Mr. Yadav, that said that India's poor is currently afraid of dying of hunger before they die of the coronavirus. Would you agree, or is that an exaggeration of the truth?
As of today, 10 people have died of coronavirus. But more than 10 may have perished. They are not being reported. More than 10 may have perished already due to the sheer economic hardship and distress that's being caused by these restrictions. I'm not challenging the restrictions. All I'm saying is that the government had something like 4 to 6 weeks of lead time before this was announced. They had seen it happen in other countries. I know it's an extraordinary situation, but we had some idea. The Prime Minister himself had given a 4-day lead time. Now, would it not be better if some of these measures were put in place before the lockdown was announced? Just the thought of watching them. I mean, I can't control my tears when I watch these people with a 10-month-old baby on their shoulder, walking some 100 kilometers to Aligarh or wherever. I mean, are these not avoidable things? These certainly are. And I fear that if some of these things are not done, the government's today's announcement on PDS is a very good announcement. But what we also need, especially in big cities where thousands of people are stranded, are kitchens, ready meal kitchens. Cooked food kitchens are absolutely required. Otherwise, these people have nothing to fall back upon. So we are in emergency. We are handling a health emergency. There's a life emergency, but there's also a livelihood emergency. And both of these need to be addressed immediately. Both of these need to be, immediately sorted out. If we don't do that, then we don't know where we would lose more. Do we lose more life due to health emergency, or do we lose more lives due to economic emergency? Both of these need to be handled simultaneously.
See, Yadav, obviously for the people in the city who have the ability to raise this issue on Twitter and to raise this issue on other social media, they must also realize that when they're looking at essential commodities and their ability to go out and buy the vegetables and be able to run their houses, it will only come if the APMCs are open, if the wholesale markets are open, if the transport is allowed to bring vegetables into our city. So this is very closely linked to the price and the availability of vegetables and food in our cities, isn't it?
Just as the infection brings every Indian together, from Prince Charles to everyone on the street, everyone can be affected. Similarly, this food crisis can again connect all of us, puts us in the same chain. If perishable commodities, vegetables, fruits do not come to cities for another 3-4 days, we are looking at a very serious problem. So the sooner we address it, and mind you, if we start addressing it today, the consequences would be seen after 72 hours or so. So it takes about 2 to 3 days to even begin to address this problem. If we start addressing it today, we may be able to control it. If we start addressing it the day it actually hits a crisis point in the market, then it's another 4 days of mayhem. So the day to start action is today. In fact, was yesterday.
All right. Mr. Yadav, thank you so much for giving us your time and talking to us about the challenges being faced by the farm sector, and as a result, the increase in prices and the shortage of vegetables faced by our cities. Yogendra Yadav, thank you for your time.